ice cream man's here. Yes. Alright guys, so we're picking up where we left off with the crew cab. If you missed the last video, we put this thing on a set of BFG 37 1250 17s with a set of KMC 234 bead locks. Now this looks absolutely wild. I've never seen a bump side crew cab long bed with a set of like basically trophy truck tires, minus the fact that they're 8 lug. This is quite literally what you would see on a trophy truck, minus the lug pattern. But these tires did come straight off a trophy truck, so, and you can see on a stock lift in the rear, it does tuck a 37. So if you're curious if a bump side can run a 37 stock, it technically can, but I would not do it if you had nice paint and you cared about it. So in the front, we went ahead and we lifted this thing technically 6 inches. We're still gonna do the math. We went ahead and torched the beams, got the radius arms built, brackets built, everything underneath it's all new. We just have to figure out shocks. So in this video, we're gonna figure out the shocks, tidy up loose ends in the steering and some of the other stuff, and then focus mainly on the rear. So the biggest thing is you can see if we walk back here that this thing is very lean. It's got to toot it up. I'm not doing one of those no brain cell Carolina SWAT things. So we're gonna pick the ass end of this thing up. And so we have a 3-inch set of U-bolts and a 3-inch set of blocks. So we're gonna go ahead and throw it in this thing and then just figure out the math to figure out what longer ratio of the shock we need to make sure it doesn't snap and blow the shock out or bump and blow the shock up. So yeah, this should be pretty fun. We'll see if I can get a set of 55-year-old U-bolts undone. So I'm gonna jack this thing up and we'll get into it. Before we jump too far into today's video, I did want to remind you guys of the small block killer collection that we did. This is the last time I'm restocking this. We're developing a new brand. We're starting from scratch. So all the apparel that you see on the website is going to go away. So if there's a specific design or a specific t-shirt or apparel or sticker or whatever you guys want to buy, now is the time to do it because it's going to be very short-lived. I think I've given these designs a very, very long and good life on the shelves for you guys, and I've made the availability easily accessible for you guys to grab it. So if you want to support me in the builds, go check out the awesome designs done by a wide range of amazing artists down in the description below. I'll also have it as a pinned comment on 909speedcompany.com. So that being said, don't forget to grab something for yourself at the end of the video, and let's get into it. Why does this thing have so much travel? What the oh god. Okay, maybe I'll do it a little better this time. Alright, let's got this thing standing up. It's only like minorly sketchy. I've seen a lot of your guys' comments that I need to invest in a lift, and I have been listening. So hopefully in the next couple months we'll have a lift in here, because now, before I used to only have that side of the shop, now that we have this side, I can do a lift and drive straight in. So it would be nice also, we've been thinking about knocking this wall, push this wall down, and then we could actually do a lift in the corner. So we could do a 2-post, we could actually do a 4-post, 2-post, and another one, or just do 2 lifts over here this way. I don't know, we could figure it out. But it would be nice to do a 4-post here for storage, and then a 2-post over there and have a work bay over there, and then leave this open. I don't really know, but there's a bunch of ways we could do it. Overall, trying to make the space work. But realistically, if I took that wall down, I could put another car in between these two, and then if I had 2 lifts, there'd be 4 cars over here, and then there'd be 1 car over here, so there's 5 I could put in here. There's only 3 in here right now. I can get the bug right over here because it's really tiny, but that's only when the crew cab's not in here. When the crew cab's in here, it takes up like 6 parking spaces, so. But yeah, the one thing I noticed underneath this, it's a good thing we're doing this, is this thing has 2 different U-bolts in it. You can see that side's like barely hanging on, it's super sketch. You can see this side totally normal, but that was really odd. I didn't really know why that was like that. So this thing from the factory had a bunch of weird options, and one of the things that's crazy is this thing has air conditioning, manual steering, and a 456 limited diff in the back. I think one of the rarest options on this truck probably is the differential, because you can see right here, it's really hard to see, but you can see it says 456 right there. And you come over to the other side of the truck, and you can see on this side it says limited slip differential right there. So that's really cool. So I didn't believe it at first when I ran the numbers, but after driving it shortly after we fixed it at Dylan McCool's house, it was very obvious this thing would only do 55 miles an hour on the highway. So that is why I was able to put the 37s on it. That's one thing you need to account for if you're gonna do this. You can run a 35 with stock gearing all day long. It might be a little bit of a turd, but it'll do it. If you're gonna run a 37, you're definitely gonna have to change from your original 308s, 355s, and go up to at least a 373 or it's gonna suck. I would recommend at least a 411, 410, 411, 456, somewhere in there. But I'll let you know because I'm hoping this thing will do 70 on the freeway now. But yeah, so now comes the teardown. So we're gonna go ahead and get these U-bolts soaked in blaster, and hopefully they don't break and hopefully they come off. So I'm not gonna touch it because it's like a time bomb right now. It's like teetering and whatnot. So this is pretty much what we're looking at, which is much better. Plenty of room. I gotta shimmy the axle straight, and looks like it would definitely crab walk the way that it's sitting right now. But you can see the front wheel well to the rear looks much more symmetrical now. So if that's right height on the ground, then I'm definitely down with that. So you can see I gotta roll the axle forward a little bit, get it clocked right. Yeah, these are factory blocks. And you can see they have a bump stop pad for if and when. That would never happen, but you can see it would hit right there. And then North County Spring made up these U-bolts for me for $100. You can call them if you're local in San Diego. You know, really great shop. North County Spring and Axle, I believe is what it is. But you can call them, tell them the diameter bolt you're using, the lift you're using, the length of everything, your axle tube diameter, and it's super cheap. And they'll make them literally in like that day, which is super rad. So we're in SoCal, highly recommend it. They went ahead and whipped these things up real quick. So the only challenge now is getting the axle straight and then figuring out a longer shock. And then you probably also noticed that I cut the brake line off, or the brake line tab off, because brake line at full droop, with the axles full drooped, it'll tear the brake line, the soft line going to the axle. So I'm gonna have to make another mount for that. But overall, everything looks pretty good, pretty stout. It's not over the top. It's technically a factory highboy lift, if you will, because these blocks would have came on a highboy or a four-wheel drive truck. They actually came off of Travis's 71 4x short bed truck, which is essentially a little highboy. Yeah, they look good. I like them. So I'm gonna get this thing straightened up, torque it down. So I'm gonna go and get these things cleaned up because ironically they do fit. And these things are super old. They don't make boxes that look like this on the blue labels anymore. So I'm gonna tear these things apart. They've been sitting for a long time, as you can see. And I'm gonna hopefully make them look brand new. Going for a drive down the road, going nice and straight down the road, guys. Oh yeah, there we go. It rubs a little bit. So we're gonna drive the crew cab over to a good local little spot. Takes cool photo and video. I figured I'd never given you guys a good POV of this thing. It's a monster. It's a pain to drive. This AC thing did work. What the hell? But yeah, I haven't given you guys like a good proper POV of this thing, and it's really fun to drive. It's just a handful and a half, but yeah, you can just kind of throw the wheel around. So power steering is 100% the next upgrade. I do think I have a power steering box and a pump at my house. I have to check, make sure I didn't sell it like an idiot. If I do have that, I'll put that in it. New drop pitman arm to fix the bump steer, and then tie up some loose ends, and then we get the AC working. Oh, this would be a nice daily driver. And minus the fact gas is $5.50 a gallon right now, which is less than ideal. And Toby's here. Dude, howdy. Howdy. I can't see anything, but hopefully you guys can. You can kind of see it's a little bit bump steerish, and that's due to my pitman arm angle. So if you have a factory power steering truck, your power steering pitman arm is lower than the non-power steering manual box trucks. So if you have power steering, you won't have this problem. But if you have manual steering, pay attention. Hey, it's a Humvee. Nice, I got the same size tire as that guy. Being the pitman arm's up higher, your steering angle is pretty gnarly, and every time you hit a bump, it kicks it and tows it in. And so that creates bump steer. So anytime we get a big bump, going pretty quick, it does that. If you had power steering though, like I said, you're probably not gonna have that problem. And if I did have power steering and the crappy pitman arm angle, it still would be easier to control. It's just the fact it has manual steering that's a little bit of a pain to work with here. So like I said before, I don't know if you guys missed it, this does have a 456 limited slip differential from the factory, which is super cool. That's why I didn't have to re-gear the truck when I put the 37s on it. That's the reason I went with a 37 over the 35. So if you have a 35-inch tire, or if you have a 350, a factory 350 gear ratio, you probably don't want to go straight to a 37. You might want to consider a different size tire. But try it, let me know how it works. If you got an automatic running 37s with a 350, you're probably going to hate it, but you get to play it around a little bit. 37-inch tire, you want at least a 410, 456, somewhere in there, just to make it a little more drivable. Not load up the motor as much. It's nice and quiet though. Yeah. It's very drivable.
We can actually talk.
Yeah, I know. This is nice. You can hear how loud the tires are.
It's probably quieter than the Junkyard.
Honestly, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. All right, and here goes my fender. My fender's gonna be gone. Ah, yes, there it goes. Oh yeah, and she's screeching. Oh, no. All right, there we go. Fender delete. I have not cut any of the fender. Haven't rolled it, haven't pulled it, haven't smashed it with a fender or hammer, haven't bent anything. Stock on a 37. I totally expected that. Oh no, come on, not a sweeping turn.
Hey, you
oh, come on.
Come here.
Damn $700 tire, man. I'm just pulling the edge of it off. You don't need a horn, you just need to turn right. Oh wow, my depth perception is really getting pretty bad with this camera in between my eyeballs. Trying to see all the holes and not destroy myself here. This is very crawlable. For being 35 feet long, it's not too bad. Don't mind me, just taking my truck on a walk. But it's not rubbing in the back. That's pretty nice. Oh, okay, well, that fender's All right, you guys. Well, there you have it. There's the lift on the 71 F350 crew cab. That equates out to about a 6-inch lift. Like you guys were asking that, what does it actually, you know, lift? What does it actually end up lifting the truck to? It's pretty much about a 6-inch lift. It's a 3 in the rear. It's a 6 in the front. So these trucks naturally they are nose heavy, and realistically, if you lifted it just 3 inches in the front and left the rear stock, it would look like it's leveled. So it's between like a 5 to 6 inch lift in the front. That will tuck a 35 no problem. It'll tuck a 37 no problem. And I guess I'll show you guys on the front just from driving it around what would rub. That's the only thing that's rubbing right there is that one little spot on the fender. Nothing on the back. It does not hit the back. It does hit the radius arm a little bit, which will factor into our design and future radius arms. We're going to be building more radius arms and more styles of this kit between drop brackets, beam brackets, the actual beam themselves. But Franklin and I we've talked about doing a fully fabricated beam for this truck, as well as the radius arm, and making a full bolt-on kit. So this one's welded. This one's been fully fabricated by us. See, it came out pretty good, but we're just kind of using the resources that we have right now just to get measurements. So we're going to take this and do a lot more with it. The nice thing too, you can see we do have our stock radius arm bracket there. And the nice thing is you could actually go back to stock, and at full bump with no spring in it, which this thing would never hit, that radius arm tube will not touch. It will get less than an 1/8 inch away from that, but it will not touch the factory radius arm mount. So you don't even have to chop off the radius arm brackets if you didn't want to, which is awesome because you could actually put this truck or any of the trucks back to stock if you really wanted to. But if you're doing all this work, you're probably not going to go backwards, but it's nice to have that option to know you're not cutting up your truck necessarily. Some guys have super rare factory options or whatever have you. I mean, I don't care. I'll cut this truck up because it's a truck that I've always dreamed of having, so I'll make it how I want. But some guys, you know, they care about that kind of stuff. So something to think about. Then in the rear, I ended up just putting, for right now, you have a set of stock shocks in it. It actually does fit, but if I flex or droop this thing out, it will restrict the shock. So I'm gonna put those boxes that I had in it. So yeah, pretty freaking neat though. But yeah, I was also wondering, we're talking about keeping the camper on it or taking the camper off for the summer. Let me know what you guys think. I did think it was very fitting having the Callan on this thing. It just fits the truck so dang well. It's hard to see me not having it on there, but it would look pretty damn cool without it. But it just serves such a good purpose. In the summer, it gives you shade, and in the winter, it keeps you warm. So even in the rain, it'll keep you dry. And the Callan just has such a retro styling. Even the windows are the same shape. It's like, it was just meant to be. You know, it's perfect.
Worth it?
Just have your big lifted truck guy drive. All right, so getting back on this thing, we're gonna wrap this lift up. So what we need to do is put shocks in the front. So I was actually driving it around with no front shocks. Doesn't actually drive too bad, but you can see in the rolling shots, the wheel, when it hits a bump, it does start to shake. And the inertia from that with a big tire, it starts like, not death wobble, but bounce. And the thing weighs a lot, so it's just something you expect. So I'm gonna go and throw a shock in it, something that needed to happen anyways. I have the stock ones in the rear. They're not right though, because if I droop this thing out, they will bind on the shock. So I'm gonna put those foxes that I have in the back. But what I ended up doing is essentially measuring our extended and compressed length, like I said earlier. So what ended up happening is on the front, I ran a 25-inch extended shock. This is the part number that I ran, just for reference, just to save you guys some time. These are what I ran in the front. So these are 57, 61 Monroe. Very, very basic shock, nothing too crazy here. So I ran these in the front, and then I ran the foxes, like I said, in the back, which I already showed the measurements for those earlier. So that's what we're gonna be running. Some of these should just bolt right in. They're stock style. So I'm just going to slide these things up underneath the front, and then just go ahead and bolt them up just like a stock shock. It's the same thing, just longer. But these things are cheap. They're only like 30 bucks. So nothing too crazy. We'll probably do something with this truck later. I just need something to drive it. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss these things in and see how they fit. Let's see if I can get this damn thing on. All right, got our wheel on, got this thing fixed. It was actually starting to go flat because the bead lock did not seat perfectly the first time we mounted these, so we noticed it. There was the tiniest little bulge where it didn't seat. So our boys over at JC Wheel and Tire over there got us hooked up. If you guys ever need tires or really good wheel and tire services, you can see he does a lot of them. So massive shout out to him, got that done. We're also holding this thing up with our AGM jack rod. This thing's rad. If you don't have a jack stand available, you can pop this guy in. It'll hold the load of the truck. I think this thing holds like, yeah, you can see 3.5 tons on that thing right there. So she'll hold her up just fine. So yeah, check it out. I'll have a link down below if you want to grab one of those. You guys ever AGM makes really rad stuff. So time to put those front shocks in. All right, so on these shocks, they normally don't give you a bushing sleeve, it's just an open bushing, which is for I think like a 3/4 inch bolt. We're not running a 3/4 inch bolt on the bottom of this. So this is a universal shock. That's one thing I forgot to say. This is not for this truck. I just measured the lengths, wanted a stem and then an eyelet, bought the shock. These are like 35 bucks a piece, they're super cheap. So the one thing you're gonna have to do is make this work. So my shock mount is a little bit different than a stock one. Stock one has a actual tab with a bolt in it. Mine is like a piece of Boss material that you slide the bolt all the way through. So same thing, just mounted just slightly differently. So what I did is I just took a 3/4 inch OD and 1/2 inch ID, you know, basically tube, cut it, used that as an insert, slipped that and pressed it in. I have a perfect fit on the bolt that slides all the way through. See, like that. So now I can go ahead and mount this thing up like that. So now it's a nice tight fit, it's not all loose anymore. So sometimes you're not always gonna get all the parts included with the purchase of something. So every once in a while you're gonna have to make stuff. So don't be afraid to make adapters and make pieces fit that aren't necessarily designed for your car, because a lot more products will fit on your vehicle than you would imagine. Just takes a lot of simple measuring and just seeing what fits, and you can make it always work. So that's how I managed to put a $35 shock on my truck with a full 6-inch lift kit instead of buying a $200 shock. So this is nowhere near anything great. It's like the base model of base model for O'Reilly stuff, but it will get the truck down the road, and that's what we're going for. So we got the crew cab back in here, got it all drooped out. This thing actually has a surprising amount of travel for how big it is. I mean, you gotta keep in mind this thing's like 20, gosh, I don't know, at least 23 feet long. Big truck, and that is like over 2 feet off the ground as the bottom of the bedside. The ride height on the front is 2 feet, so that's probably about 30 inches off the ground in the back, almost 3 feet off the ground, probably over, actually, definitely over 3 feet in the back. But yeah, this is actually very impressive. So factory 4-inch high boy lift, and we're gonna cram in these two Fox shocks in there. I got a bunch of tabs we're gonna weld in. So I think the best plan of attack, and mind you, the stock shocks fit. Stock shocks did fit. However, if for whatever reason I'm in a position where this thing's gonna flex out on something, it's gonna actually push that one opposite end below droop point. This is a full droop right now. And you can actually see the bottom of these shocks are just a hair above the eyelet hole. So they're already fully strapped out. You can see this one right here, if I go up, that full droop point is just a hair below what that shock's able to do, probably by about an inch. So therefore your natural solution is to go ahead and put a longer shock in it. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so technically we have this shock, which we're gonna push in here. The eyelet, the bottom of this thing is ironically pretty much the exact same as what was on this, which is very good. So I'm gonna just mock this up real quick. So now that will sit there. The ice cream man's here, yes. So now in theory what I need to be doing is figuring out where to tab this up. Now ironically, if I show you guys on the bottom, this would be pristine to mount it on the bottom of the bed. Obviously tabbing off the bottom of the body is not a good thing. We need to keep this specific to the frame. Unless I want to poke a big hole in the floor, it doesn't really make any sense to tab it off of that. My next solution was building a tab off of this frame cross member structure. Now that's not a bad idea. However, that shock angle is not really something that I want. So I'm gonna probably have to build something off of the side of the frame. This is probably gonna be a little more work than I wanted initially, but I'm gonna get creative with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and play with this for a little bit, figure out what I want to end up doing. And I have two tiny little tabs that I was expecting to just toss in here. That might be a little bit harder than I expected. No, come back, no. So I just welded in the shock mount tube into the frame. Pretty simple design. So they just a triangle plate and then welded that to a piece of 1.5 inch, 90 wall, I think it's 90 wall, and then just ran it across and it should be pretty good. So whenever I have the bed off this thing, I'll fully weld the top side and then I'll add a triangulated plate gusset on the top. So I'll make a flat plate that gussets it to the top of the frame, but this is literally just a shock mount, so the odds of it tearing this off is pretty small. I mean, I don't think it will. So realistically what we're gonna do, here's our stock shock mount. So I'm gonna cut this flat right here and get rid of this. This is normally a stud mount. It would have gone pretty much like that, but this needs to be longer. So essentially, if I pull the shock up, I'll be able to put a tab right there. And now you can see I just gained like at least 3 inches of up travel on the shock, or shock travel. And this is currently at just about ride height. And you can see the shock shaft right here. We have a lot of shock shaft showing, which is perfect. So that's pretty much where I'm gonna sit this thing. I just gotta cut that off so the resi mount doesn't hit it. We'll be pretty much good to go. So I'm gonna get this thing welded in. Alright guys, so we got the shock mount all done. Looks pretty good. The resis are in there. I just gotta get them properly charged. Just got air in them for right now, just to street drive it a little bit. So yeah. So you can see the design's pretty simple. Just that straight tube across with the tabs on it. And then it has that triangulation shear that kind of lands the tube a little bit on top of the frame there. So that whole thing looks pretty good. Tucks the shock up about 3 inches higher than stock, which is perfect. And then you got the stock mount on the bottom still. So you can see it in the front, pretty good. Everything lands nicely, looks good. Definitely looks good with the shocks in there. It should drive a heck of a lot better too. So now our rear end lift is pretty much completely done. It's a lot stiffer in the back, which is good. So when I'm towing, I have actually like a good set of shocks in it. All right, just like that, we've got our lift done, and we've got these things matching. Looks freaking rad. Went ahead and cleaned up the wheels and tires real quick. And this lift is just about done. So you can see our front end. So if you guys didn't see the video when we built this, Franklin and I did all the work under here. We'll show you how we did it. Very, very informative video if you guys are curious on how to lift these things. And then now we're not all squatted anymore. Now we have a factory highboy 3-4 inch lift in the back. Looks really good. We are proportional from front to rear now. Now there's no weird North Carolina squat or any of that weird stuff going on. You can see our shock mount in there came out super, super clean. It's up tucked in there, really, really nice. Doesn't hit anything. Allows for a lot more travel in the back of this truck. And then we've got our highboy mount over here with the factory lift blocks that'll hit the bump stop in the correct position. Then I didn't check travel numbers, but we definitely gained a few inches for sure. But yeah, overall this rear setup works pretty well, and I think it'll drive just fine. I'm definitely stoked on this one for sure, because with the Foxes in the back actually being valved for a lot heavier of a load, this thing should hopefully tow a lot better in the future, which is really good. Because the stock shocks were not cutting it. The thing was definitely squatted out a little bit. Even with this truck behind it, which doesn't weigh a lot, so that was a little bit concerning, but shouldn't be a problem now. So yeah, I hope you guys went on to enjoy today's video. A lot of information, a lot of work. Would I recommend doing this on your truck? I mean, yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but if you don't mind doing the work, it doesn't necessarily cost a whole lot of money if you have all the right parts and all the right tools. The tools are what cost the money. You have to have the torch, the welders, all the knowledge and skill to be able to do something like this. And just really do your homework and make sure you know what you're doing, because it can be fatal and super, super dangerous if you don't know what you're doing in terms of lift kits like this, between steering and all the other stuff. So speaking of steering, the last thing that needs to get done in this lift kit, to call it 100% done if you really want to get technical, it drives just fine. I would like to get a drop pivot arm on it just to get the steering angle a little bit. It does bump steer just a little bit, but that's because I have a manual steering truck. If this was a factory power steering truck, that would not be an issue, like I said in the previous video. But yeah, overall, super hyped on this. Looks really, really good. Very, very proud of this. Franklin and I did a ton of work to this truck, and it definitely transformed the way that this thing looks. Let me know your comments down below what you guys think. Drop a like on the video. Check out the merchandise at 909speedcompany.com. This will be the last time you can grab your small block killer t-shirts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later, guys. We're What'd you find? Did you find that booger you're looking for?
Hey, off. Alright?